Okay, I just want to finish working on some of these sunflower petals. And what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I kind of work every other one around. So now I can get in here and wet some of these upper ones. I usually wet 2 or 3 at a time. That gives me enough time to work on them before they start to dry out on the paper. So here's for those. I'm going to use some of my lighter yellow, which is Aureolin. Just kind of let the paint get in there. Don't worry about leaving some of the white spaces because that'll be the highlights. And get in here that. And this last one. And then I'm going to take a second color, which is New Gamboge, and get in where it would be darker, near the center of the flower, on the side that's not sunny. So the bottom side of this one. It's a little bit too much paint there. Get some of that up. And in the center of this one. So this way I can keep the shape of each petal, but I still get that looseness that is really what kind of draws people to watercolor. So for those, I can move over here now. These are dry, so I can get in here and do the same thing, kind of just wet that a little bit. I'll get this one. And then move over here to this one and do the same thing. Get my yellow. Painted outside the line a little bit there, that's okay. Nobody's gonna notice. A little bit up here for this one. That's pretty wet. I don't want back bleeds, so. And get some of my gamboge for the bottom part. Bring that around and down. And the same with this one. This one was kind of a skinny petal, so I'll just get some of this darker yellow up in there. And there you have it. Now I'd like to work on the center of this sunflower. And the one that I have that I used for this reference was really, really dark. But I'm not so sure that I want to make it that dark. I want to keep this a little bit of a lighter and airier painting. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wet almost the entire center. I don't want to get too close to the petals because I don't want it to back bleed. And then I'm going to just start dropping in some different colors to get a nice brown, dark brown color. I'm going to start with a little bit of Quin Gold. Just kind of brush this in here. Let the paint do its thing. Then I'm going to use a little bit of purple. Purple and gold will make a nice brown. Then I'm going to go back to a little bit of a lighter color again. I'm going to get some burnt sienna. And get some of this in here. I'm working on a slant also just to keep the paint kind of moving a little bit. I'm going to start getting closer in towards some of those petals. And then I'm going to get a little bit of alizarin, crimson, get some red in there. You're going to say I'm crazy for putting all these colors, but we want it to be lively and not dull when it's done. There's a little bit of that. And then finally a little bit of Prussian. or actually I'm gonna use indigo. Indigo's a little bit darker, just to get this down here a little bit darker. So that's it with my round brush. Now I'm gonna grab a little flat brush, angled flat brush, and kind of get in here and just pull this in around the petals so I don't disturb them. And then just move myself around. This allows me to kind of just get up in there and get it done. Paint is wet enough. I'm not really adding any more paint. I'm just using what's kind of in there. Although maybe I could right in this edge. A little bit of more burnt sienna. Pull that in through there. That's a little oopsie. Any oopsies I can clean up later. You have to kind of move quickly through this, otherwise you're gonna end up having things dry out on yourself, and you don't want that either. And if it's a little bit too wet here, I'm just gonna dab off some of that wetness onto my paper towel so I don't get too much in there. Kind of get up in between each one of these little petals, get rid of those white spots. And as I'm looking at this, might be just a little bit too red for me, so I think what I'll do is just drop in a little bit more burnt sienna over some of that red, just to tone that down a little bit. And as it's drying, it's lightening up a little bit, so I just charge in a little bit more color. And then when I've got it to the intensity that I like, I can flatten it and let it dry completely. And I think that's where I'm going to stop. Thank you. The next part is to get in the green leaves and some of the stems for this first sunflower. And I like to mix my own greens, and I'll do it a little bit wet into it. I'm not going to get it too wet because I do want to let some of the wet paint flow on its own. So just a little water there. This is a kind of a scrunched up, curly kind of leaf. I'm going to take, to start with, some Prussian blue. Get this kind of just in here a little bit. Just in the center, because my reference, actually, the tips for this are a little bit lighter, so I want to make sure I leave enough room to have those highlights on the edges from the yellow. And it's a little bit darker in the center, so I can get some of this darkness in there. Then I'm going to take some, I think I'm going to just go with the New Gamboge color. We'll start with that and see what kind of green we get. That's kind of nice. So I don't mind. Sunflower petals are not real bright anyway, so this is probably pretty much perfect for this. And then it's very cohesive because the yellow is the yellow that was in the flower. Just kind of let those mix around there. And this petal was kind of getting on its way out. There was a little hole there, so I'm going to leave that. And it has some of the rot color brown, I guess, from rotting. So I'll get some more blue in until I get it to the exact color that I'd like. And I haven't, you'll notice I haven't worried about where my veins in the leaf are. That's coming next. So what I'm going to do is just take the back end of a brush and kind of just get in there and scratch the petal, scratch the paper to show where the petal lines are. And what happens is, because the paper is damaged, the paint will flow in there and you'll get some nice lines. You won't have to worry too much about putting in those veins later on. Although after it dries, you can always go back and just kind of get that in there. Like I said, the center is a little bit dark, so I want to get more blue. Right in through here was kind of shaded. And then I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber, nice dark brown. And like I said, right along there was just a little bit of the leaf was starting to get a little bit brown. I can put a little bit along the edges on this side and up there also, just to show that it was almost at the end of its time. And there was actually a little bit along the center too, so I'm gonna get some of that brown right into the center. And that is it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to finish up this sunflower bouquet. And if you followed my other two videos, then you saw the first one I did the petals, the second one was the center, and this one I'm just going to finish up the leaves and the little, I guess, little leaves or whatever you call those things. So the leaf, I'm just gonna get in here and wet a little bit, not getting too close to that yellow because I don't want it to interfere. And then just get some Prussian blue and just kind of get it in here. I like to mix my greens on the page, so you get that nice variation in color and you get a nice green that's more true to color. Again, I'm going to take my gamboge, which was what I was using for a lot of the petals and some in the center also, and kind of just get in here with some of that. These are just round, I think about a size 10 brush. And once I get some of the yellow in, then I can go back in with some of my blue and kind of intensify that nice deep green. I like that there's some yellow and blue on this side, give it some interest. And then I'm just going to take my flat angled brush and work in through the edges, because I don't want to try to put that in there, get in close to these little yellow petals. And then one way to eliminate having to go back in and do a lot of painting of the veins, I just take the opposite end of my brush and kind of drive some etching into the painting. As it dries, you'll get just enough of an impression. And then also with these leaves, they were kind of on their way out, so I think I'm going to add just a little bit of brown on maybe the tip, just to give it another little variation here. Some of these leaves are actually spiky, so So I can get that in and then just up the center. There. And then I would do the same thing with the rest of these little leaves, except I probably wouldn't do it wet into wet. And there is your finished product. Thanks for viewing.